Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 3 of Rapid Plus TCT 2022. I'm Brandon Ribic. I'm the Technology Director at America Makes, and I'm really happy to be joined this morning with John Barnes. How are you today, sir?
Pretty good, pretty good. Good morning, good to be here.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a good week. I think the weather so far this week has been pretty good. I know we were getting like a lot of rain, and then we had some really nice sunshine, and so I think it's been great to get out and see a lot of people too. I think that's been
I
a
think
fun part of
everybody's happy to see people again.
Yeah, for sure.
And the
for
weather's
sure.
always nice inside,
Yeah, absolutely, right?
like Vegas.
Right? Yeah. So what's going on at SME? I mean, I think there's, you mentioned some new awards. I think there's been, a ton of great things that we've heard about this week in terms of folks' volunteer activities and recognition. And so, how about we start there? What's going on?
Yeah, so I'm happy to take over from Chris Williams, who was the past chair for the AM Additive Manufacturing Technical Community Advisor. So I'm the new chair, and that group really has a goal to sort of coordinate some of the additive activities for SME. There's several different communities within SME that do different things in additive. So we're happy. We've got Bob Willig, who's the new CEO of SME. Well, new, 18 months in, I guess. And he comes from a manufacturing background. He worked at places like GKN Powder. So he understands additive pretty strongly, and he's pretty passionate about it. So we're looking forward. He challenged us to come up with how would we advise SME do they need to change their strategy? What should they be doing differently as additive manufacturing becomes a manufacturing technology? Which of course the M in SME is for manufacturing. So
Right.
those are all kind of new things that have happened, and we've within our technical community, a couple of things we do. One is the Alban Award, and it used to be more around a publication, a technical publication, and that has waned in enthusiasm, and especially as you move towards more practical industrial applications, the academic side of it really isn't there. So we've modified it to be an application case study award. And so this year, I believe IMI Critical won that with Velo 3D. And so it was a pretty cool application that they put together, and they documented it with some evidence and test data. So we were pretty excited about that, and it's a new award. Next year we hope that it's even bigger than it was this year. We've got new criteria for it. It's a thing, so it's a way to honor Dick Alban. And the other award that we have is the Industry Achievement Award. And we've really put a little bit more emphasis into it. We've got, the past winners of this award are Scott Crump and Chuck Hull and Ely Sachs and Dave Burrell. That's a pretty heavy-hitting group.
Sure.
So this year the award went to Slade Gardner. He's now with Big Metal Additive. We were Lockheed alums. And here's a guy who's been 25 years working on additive manufacturing, both polymers and metals, has a part implemented in spaceflight. So, and part of that award, wasn't just like, actually getting, it's about having an impact on the industry. And sometimes having an impact on the industry is sustained effort and what you do to give back to the industry. And so Slade he's very passionate about working with students, always has been. So that's another metric that we use to assess who's going to win this Industry Achievement Award. And the other thing that we're really happy with is we've been doing a lot with career development. So there's kind of workforce development, there's career development. So myself and Jennifer Coyne, Ellen Lee, these are all advisors. We've really kind of created a new career forum that extends beyond. It used to just be at Rapid, and so we had a big session yesterday with the students, and they come in, they meet with people from industry, and they get some exposure to taking it into the webinar format, so it's easy for everybody to get access to. But we've really focused on what do you do in the additive industry. So you're not just running a printer, you're designing things. What does an applications engineer do? What kinds of things can you design? What does it mean for the movie industry versus jewelry versus transportation? So we're trying to get out more about what people do in the additive industry as a way to make sure that we've got a good pipeline of young people, and we haven't forgotten the mid-career people either. So, part of this is making sure if somebody's looking to maybe transition away from a legacy manufacturing technology, how do they get into additive? So those are all pretty exciting things that I think I'm very proud of. We've also made a considerable effort to improve the composition of our group. We've taken an inventory of skills and backgrounds, and some people are metals people, some people are polymers people, some people are mechanical engineers, some people are in marketing. But we've also made sure that we have, about a 50% group of females. We have more people. It's a much more diverse group than it was maybe 5 years ago.
That's great.
So I think I'm very pleased with that.
Yeah.
It's a very good team, and actually we're looking for some new volunteers to come in. We'll be making those decisions here in the next couple of months.
Okay.
So anybody listening at home, we need people as long as they're going to be engaged.
Yeah. So you mentioned, the AMTC, and I think that's a great opportunity to follow up on that. So when folks want to get engaged in that or volunteer, should they reach out to you, or who's the right point of contact there?
Yeah, they can reach out to me. They can reach out to anybody on the AMTC.
Okay.
There's some information on the SME website.
Okay.
So Susie Marzano is our lead at SME. She does everything for us. She takes care of us, gets us all registered, and tells us where we need to be. So she's kind of tireless in keeping us on track.
Yeah.
Certainly anybody who's on the committee can be contacted. It's a nomination process, but we just first and foremost, we just want people who are going to put the time in.
Yeah. Remain dedicated, stay engaged.
Yep.
That's good. And then the committee, you're taking over for Chris Williams, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So Chris has been volunteering in that committee for 6 years.
Wow.
He was this last year he served as chair, and the previous year he was vice chair. So kind of 2 tumultuous years to be to be heading it up. So, but I think just like everybody else, we adapted, we overcame, we persevered, we met virtually. We're looking forward to doing our usual fall in-person meeting. I think we're going to do that around IMTS.
Okay.
So it gives us a chance to get together to talk about what we're doing, how we're going to help Bob do his thing.
Sure.
And then be involved in the industry at the same time.
Yeah, that's great. Another thing you mentioned the career forum. I'm sure there's a lot of students who have an interest there. I mean, additive is definitely something that everyone I talk to, particularly in academia, there seems to be a growing, strong interest there, to say the least. Is that something that's always open for folks to volunteer to be a part of, or is it something they should just plan to come and attend? Do they need to sign up, or?
I think there's no rules to this.
Okay.
And I think it used to just be at Rapid, and we've bent the rules, and so we do it throughout the year with webinars. So people learn in different ways, so you can expose people in different ways at the same time. So I think we're always open for good ideas.
Okay.
I think with Jen and Ellen have come in, and they've really kind of taken it a whole new level, which is what you want.
Right. No, and it's funny because I think we all kind of come in with a perspective or an ideal, right? But to come to the show, meet people, get to experience the things you were describing, understand the workflow, and possibly even some repetition to it, right? The challenges, the complexity. But then it doesn't end at the show, right? So I think you're saying, it continues, it offers a journey for folks.
Yeah. I think, now that my, I've got 2 daughters, one's approaching college, and so, I was trying to impress upon her that, I'm an engineer, but just because you have a degree in engineering, what you very often do in a job requires that engineering degree, but you might be a manager, you might support production, you might design things, you may not actually use the engineering component.
Right.
You just need it there as a background. So the roles that people play in a situation very often different than their educational background, and that's a good thing. So I think that's another piece that we try to bring to the equation, to use a technical term.
For sure. No, and that's great. I mean, I can definitely relate to that myself. You wear a couple different hats, and whether you're trying to consult or lead the team or just, even be a partner, right? There's different approaches to different things, and depending upon who you're working with and the needs, got to be adaptable, right?
Yep.
And it's not all technical challenge.
Yeah, I think education happens in many different ways, and
Sure.
I think as we're learning now, with at least with my kids, there's a lot of YouTube.
Oh my gosh.
And it's there, it's at your fingertips,
Yeah.
and so lack of information isn't a problem.
Yeah, I'll be completely honest. I try to do some DIY and go to source YouTube
Yeah.
quite often, right? There's tons of great information, to say the least. Um, Thinking about how things have kind of changed, and I've been thinking about this week and talking to folks about this. I think, I don't know if it's right to call it the theme, but there's definitely a narrative of the next level, and there's a lot of talk of scaling, but scaling in a sense to production. And I have some perception of what is meant by rapid, the next level, but kind of coming from the perspective of the team who helped design the event and the narrative. I mean, what was the thought process there? What is meant by that? What?
Yeah, well, I think it's still under a lot of definition.
Yes, sir.
This is a very kinetic situation. I think as we would have used in my prior life, and it's maturing. And so what it is today and what it will be next year and what it was last year are all different things. So we're definitely seeing this move more towards more industrialization.
Uh-huh.
And I think when you look at like what SME is about, it's about manufacturing. And so as we've moved more and more away from prototyping into more manufacturing and series manufacturing. But I think, we had this workshop yesterday for the business and economics. We tried to point out that, there's nothing actually wrong with prototyping. I mean, that's a manufacturing industry. It just suits a different purpose, and it's
Sure.
and it's so it's a strong business sector, and so it's represented here. So I think where things will be going in the future. I don't know. My crystal ball isn't perfect, but I think it'll be more what you're seeing, more open environments like this. This is a very multimedia type event now, and I think one of the things we encouraged SME to think about as a community was, we're coming out of coming out of COVID. People haven't seen each other. We just need to give them a chance to see each other and have actual conversations. Met numerous people that I realized I'd never met in real life, and Laura has a thing, if she doesn't know how tall they are, she realizes that she's never met them in person. So I've met several people. I'm like, man, you are a lot taller in person than you are on a Zoom screen.
That's so true. I remember. I think there was an event last year I was at, and I got the opportunity to meet someone for the first time in person, and her response was, "You're so tall." So like, it's very interesting to see that kind of dynamic and how we've been efficient with the virtual, and so as we kind of get back to getting together more, that we recognize those nuances, and so it's fun. I think I guess particularly, and I'm kind of curious to your perspective, especially you mentioned Bob's challenge and thinking about next year. I have to say, and I've already kind of shared some of this feedback already with the SME team. I found in particular a lot of the discussions this year, be it the keynotes, the technical sessions, and the specific topics or the tracks, I felt that irrespective of the application domain, much of what was being discussed was very relevant. And my curiosity is that by design, are folks talking about that? Are you thinking about that for next year? Maybe are there some opportunities that you're thinking of?
Yeah, so I think with the technical session, I know that group, there's a separate group that approves all of the abstracts, and I think they did a very good job this year. That it wasn't so much a focus on quantity as it was on quality, and I think that's healthy. I actually presented a technical paper for the first time in several years.
Oh, wow.
Fortunately, Mihaela Vlasia from Waterloo was there to give most of it, so I was just the color commentary. But I think that there's definitely a thirst for that, and I think we're seeing how people digest that information has definitely changed. And so when you're going to do an in-person event, that information needs to be relative to being an in-person event. Otherwise, it's very easy to get, on a webinar and it's fatiguing to sit and listen to technical talks for 4 hours.
Sure.
So at some point you peter out. So I think we're all learning now about how to make the best use of this time. And at the end of the day, time's the only thing we don't get back. So I think it's all a learning process. And I think that's what's been kind of interesting with SME. There's no hard boundaries of what's not acceptable. It's just a question of, okay, what are we going to learn? What should we, how do we help other people? And I think that's, another refreshing point about SME's involvement is that they're not protective over anything. They just want to be, a group that helps everybody that's involved in manufacturing.
Yeah.
So it's a very, kind of an interesting perspective. We like to help people, but
Sure.
We're very obviously we're a very small business, as you know, but if we're not helping people, we're not in business.
Right.
SME has that larger role, or larger mission.
Yeah, no, servitude is a fun thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's it challenges you, and then it challenges you to always strive for better, right? To help others around you.
Yeah, and I think I sincerely believe that the expression "you stand on the shoulders of giants," and so I'm picking up from Chris, so somebody else will pick up from me, and
Yeah.
it keeps marching on, and you try to make progress, year over year, and it gets better year over year.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, and I look forward to it. Thinking about how things kind of change over the years, I definitely don't think we were talking about, production 5 years ago as much as we talked about production this year at Rapid. But what other things are there that, you've seen in your experience coming to Rapid and your engagement in this technical community, that you see as key changes or noteworthy shifts?
Yeah, I think there's a greater appreciation that additive is actually a diverse family of technologies. It was, for a lot of people, it was a technology. They knew something of it, and they knew it was plastics, or a lot of people understand powder bed fusion. That's kind of the current one that's evolving out of the trough and into productivity.
Right.
We've got other technologies. There's a lot of interest and enthusiasm around binder jetting. Personally, I started directed energy deposition, back in the late '90s, and it's just been there humming along, in some cases making a lot of parts and repairing a lot of parts.
Right.
And so I think that's in some ways it gets hard to talk about because it becomes very diverse,
Sure.
and so it's not singular anymore. But that's a sign of a healthy industry, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we were at the Tampa event, and I found it fascinating. The 4-star general from the Air Force, pointed out that 80% of the Air Force's spare parts were met with a repair,
Yeah.
and then 10,000 parts didn't even get a single bid. So we've got a lot of work, and I have to believe that additive can step in and fulfill those very unique needs, high mix, low volume needs. So I think collectively, if we get our act together, we're gonna do some good stuff.
I agree. I'm similarly optimistic. I think, I haven't heard a lot about it. I heard some, I think, in Brian Bowman's talk the other day about repair. Do you think there's a reason why we're not talking a lot about repair, or is it because I intrinsically feel like, as you said, right, we've been doing it a long time. I feel like it's progressed pretty far in some cases, but I don't know how widely known that is.
I think it's one of those things that I would say it's probably a microcosm of the adoption of additive. So it used to be we heard about every new adoption of additive. Now, people aren't reporting on it. It's not in their annual report. It's becoming more normal. And usually when things become boring, that means that it's settled.
You're winning.
So we're still probably not boring yet, but we're definitely moving in that direction. And I think the repairs just it's just a good application. It's a good and in a lot of ways it doesn't actually look different. It's hard to tell the difference between what they were doing last maybe 10 years ago with a repair. You're just able to do it much more precisely and probably more complex.
Sure.
These days. So, and with more and different technologies. So I'm I've always been a big fan of DED. Love cold spray. You know, I'm very enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I think we've heard a lot of good information so far this week that talks about the benefits of DED and particularly cold spray. And it's like any other manufacturing process or tool, right? You got to figure out how the capability fits with the application, and you can derive benefit.
Yeah.
Um, that being said, I mean, we still hear a lot about qual and cert, but I mean, when we say those words, there's a lot to both of them.
Yep.
I'm kind of curious from your perspective. Are you, I guess, kind of hearing an emphasis in certain areas, or are you seeing, concepts or needs that kind of are showing priority that we all as a community need to think about and focus on in the coming years?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're seeing it with, SAE has really stepped up its game with the ITC consortium to develop the data for the specification minimums, which then support allowables and MMPDS. And so, I remember I was at a meeting once and they're like, we need to have a goal to make standards happen quicker. And I was like, well, standards are by definition standards, so they don't happen fast. That's actually what we don't want.
Sure.
We don't want to change the standards later, so we got to understand it. It's going to take some time. And I think that's the hard part. Everything takes time. You've come out of Rolls-Royce, so you understand this. And I think when we as TBGA talk to companies about qualification and certification, the first thing is, what does that mean in your industry?
Yeah.
It doesn't always mean the same thing, but they're all shades of the same gray.
Right.
One may be a life component, but other is if you release 1 million parts and they're all bad, that's got a dire financial consequence as well. So we love talking to companies about this effort, and we always start with requirements and qualification, and then we're going to work all the way back, and that has to populate your plan. Even working with the printer companies so that they understand what their customer is going to have to do. It isn't just about, you can't just update your firmware, for example, with people, or that this is a very complex thing.
Sure.
And it's awareness and understanding that's the way to do it, and you don't have to be an expert in it. You don't have to be the one certifying it. That's Boeing's job, or that's Airbus's job. That's what they do. They own the allowables. You don't have to worry about that. But you have to know that you have to support them in the creation of those allowables. And it's going to take a lot of testing, and that's good. That's why we don't have many accidents.
Right. Yeah, and thank goodness for that. I mean, you hit on a couple of things there that I wanted to ask a little bit more about, and I think this theme also this week so far has been reoccurring, the idea of collaboration and community, and recognizing success does not often happen with one team player. Can you talk about maybe some of your experiences or things that you've seen where that's been a good example, or things that we as a community need to think about and challenge ourselves maybe to step out of our
Yeah, so I think in general, the comments that I hear from people who are new to additive is that, one, it's a very dynamic environment, and they like it. Everybody likes it. It's a very open group. It's a very collaborative group. I think if we were to make some improvements, I think we still have a ways to go on the diversity component, and that's a hard one because it's, you got to start earlier. And because I have 2 daughters, I pay attention to this. We do good in elementary school. Middle school starts to peter off, and high school is hard. And if they don't, if women aren't into getting engineering degrees in college, then it's hard to hire if you're using engineers.
Sure.
So we've got to do a better job somehow. I think the numbers are, and I looked this up recently. So in the 60s, in the height of the space race, 1% of engineering degrees in the United States went to women.
Wow.
So we need all these brains, and we have 50% of the population sitting on the sideline. Today, that number's 20%.
Okay.
So it's an improvement, but seems like we could probably be doing better.
I think so.
So I was just talking with Melissa Orm at Boeing about this. We were at a session and just happened to run into each other, and this is a topic that we're both very interested in. And it's a hard topic.
Sure.
No one company is going to solve it. It's going to take a crowd to solve it. So I don't have, unfortunately, I don't have the magic wand on that one. But I think first you got to recognize that it's there,
Right.
and how do we uplift those people around us. But that's the thing about this industry. It's there certainly has to be a recognition that it wasn't built in a day. It's got a long way to go. It's come a long way.
Sure.
We all work together to make this happen in some way, shape, or form. So literally, unlike other manufacturing types of industries, this is a rising tide floats all boats situation.
Sure.
We represent roughly 1% of manufacturing globally. There's so much further to go.
Right.
Everybody can succeed,
Sure.
and I think that's the encouraging part about it.
Yeah, I find that really exciting. In fact, just last night at dinner, I was talking to folks about how fortunate I've been and how the environment in the world of additive is so ripe and with opportunity, and not only that. How people can come in and get engaged and take on leadership roles and as I think the phrase was kinetic or dynamic, but and that about it, I think that's really exciting, and I think it's important for people to know about this because one is we see it every day, and I think we take it as a norm, right?
Yeah.
And so the opportunities like this where we come together and talk and share and just provide those little pieces of this community exists, and the piece that's missing is you, right? And we need you because we have a long way to go.
Yeah, the workforce piece is one of the single biggest issues that is the one thing that will slow the industry down. If we don't get people coming out of college and we don't do a better job of engaging with the existing manufacturing workforce that's out there, you've kind of got these two big groups, or actually got a very large existing manufacturing workforce that doesn't understand additive, but knows how to make parts. And
Right.
then we've got maybe some young people coming out of college with more additive knowledge, but really doesn't understand manufacturing that well.
Yeah.
They're colliding, but those collisions are good. It's always productive to have those. And so, Ralph Resnick and I often joke that additive needs to learn a little bit more about manufacturing, and manufacturing needs to learn a little bit more about additive. So. I think we're on that path. It'll reach steady state. I think there's acknowledgement now in the highest office in the government, with the recent announcement of AM Forward, but even in industrial base analysis and sustainment, part of the Office of Secretary of Defense, a lot of emphasis on workforce, and it's not just additive, it's manufacturing broadly. There's a thought that we don't have the skills to manufacture ships and things that we need to do. So in that, there's all kinds of opportunity.
Yeah.
Opportunities for additive to come in and displace existing technologies. Obviously, I could go on for days and weeks on this subject because I worked at Lockheed a long time.
Yeah.
I loved working there, and it's such a unique, challenging environment, unique problems to have to go solve, and what better job is there than supporting the people that are protecting and defending the country. So
Oh my gosh.
they need our help. They're not scientists and engineers mostly, but you'll see what the defense communities here prominently this week. I even met an individual from the Danish Department of Defense. So this is an international event.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I think we heard some things from that were going on with the Australian Army.
Yep.
I know the U.S. Army did a presentation on some modernization priorities, and so it's good to see that international collaboration and perspective as well.
I learned that there's actually a NATO committee on additive manufacturing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
Wow. Well, I think we're actually just about out of time. But John, it's good to see you, sir.
Yeah,
I mean,
thanks a
it's
lot.
been great to catch up and hear about things that are going on, and good luck with everything with leading the committee for next year. I know you're going to do a great job. I mean, I think, the people around you and folks know how to get engaged if they want to kind of
That's
join
right.
in and help out. And so it's good to see you. Enjoy the rest of your time at Rapid.
right. Thank you for having me. This has
You're
been
welcome.
great.